Indianapolis Colts CEO Carlie Irsay-Gordon discussed the 2025 season today, officially addressing the media. So what can we take away from the end of season presser? What can be said about Steichen and Ballard being retained for 2026 after another disastrous collapse? And how do you, the fans, feel about the Colts in 2026 after today? Well, let's go ahead and talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. I am Drake Wally, deputy editor for the site, credentialed media member and host of this show. And boy, oh boy, did we have a lot to unpack. It's far more than just Carlie Irsay-Gordon's press conference. It's more than just the abysmal finish to the 2025 season where the Indianapolis Colts finished with 7 straight losses. And it's about more than just Anthony Richardson, about more than just Daniel Jones. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this ends up playing out after this press conference. And the way that I'm going to do this episode is typically on these Monday episodes after a game. I like to really dive into the game itself, the statistics, the performances, all that kind of stuff. I really like to dive into how players played and how the game unfolded and all that and what's next. But we're not going to talk about that per se. We will touch base on the Houston Texans loss. We'll go ahead and do that. But we're going to really dive into the press conference, and because I do this show alone, I don't have clips and I don't have I don't want to keep flipping back and forth between the actual press conference itself and the show. But I'm going to dive into just the thoughts, the feeling, really the energy, if you will, around this entire press conference and just kind of the whole 2025 season in a nutshell and what Carlie Irsay was implying. You got to think, guys, this was her first end of season press conference ever. And she was up there by herself. I think last time she was in front of the media to this capacity, she had her sisters, Casey Foyt, and Kaylin Jackson up there with her to join her and kind of help her navigate some of those questions. My goodness, what an interesting conversation the media had with her, to say the least. There's a lot to unpack there, like I said. So we're not going to dive necessarily into individual quotes, but I am going to touch base on 3 things. Just what she said about the season, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, and then, of course, Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. So, but without further ado, we'll go as you guys pile in here, and please throw comments in the chat. Let's have a discussion about all this. I am going to go ahead and very briefly touch on the game. And of course, the Colts, they fell to the Texans, which nothing shocking about that, 38-30. What's there to say about this game, right? The Colts played Riley Leonard. He had his chance to start for the first time in his very, very young NFL career. Of course, he's a 6th-round rookie. I won't lie, guys. I went into this game thinking he was going to get dog walked and absolutely destroyed. You're dealing with Danielle Hunter, who came into that game with 14 sacks. Will Anderson Jr. comes into that game with 12 sacks, a whopping 26 sacks between 2 absolute monsters. And Riley Leonard played against them. He played against Jalen Petrie. He played against Kalen Bullock. I mean, this dude was playing. Azeez Al-Shaair was on the field. I mean, dude, Riley Leonard was playing the best defense in the NFL for an entire half. And had the Jaguars not absolutely destroyed the Titans and the Texans didn't know that they were out of the running for the AFC South, they would have kept those guys out there for the second half of the game. In fact, Leonard did better against the Texans when they were at full strength defensively than he did when they had their second team out there and removed all their starters. And of course, Davis Mills got in the game too. But let's just go ahead and talk about Riley Leonard. He goes out there, he has 2 touchdown passes, both to Alec Pierce. He runs one in. Sure, he had an interception. Sure, he had a strip sack from Danielle Hunter. But at the end of the day, man, you've got to be blown away with what Riley Leonard was able to accomplish as a 6th-round rookie. Starting, I mean, it's very similar to when they took Phillip Rivers out of retirement, right? And he drops into the NFL for the first time in 5 years against the freaking Seattle Seahawks, who have a defense that is disgustingly good. I mean, they're good enough that they can snuff out an entire game, and Sam Darnold could go out there and throw 4 picks, and here's Seattle's defense keeping him in the game. Well, that's the same thing for Riley Leonard, only he had to go also to NRG Stadium. He didn't have the ridiculous Hall of Fame resume that Phillip Rivers does, and he's not as great at the line of scrimmage as Rivers is. But Riley Leonard went out there and played like an absolute beast. I mean, he's definitely going to be the Colts quarterback too. He's not the answer for the future. I saw a few mullings of that, and I knew Colts fans would do this because this franchise is so freaking desperate, and the fan base is so desperate for a quarterback that's consistent and actually stays on the field, is there for more than a year, that when they saw Riley Leonard play this well, everyone was going to start wetting their pants and thinking, hey, maybe this is the guy. He's not the guy, okay? There were some miscues in that game where a starting quarterback, even if he is a rookie, just doesn't make, So I do think that Riley Leonard outperformed expectations, to put it mildly, but he's definitely the QB2. The only other thing the only two things I want to say about this game before we kind of get into, a nice loose breakdown of Carlie Irsay-Gordon's press conference, because if I'm being frank, she really didn't have that many great quotes. She said, "I'm pissed a lot," but that was about it. You could tell Carlie Irsay-Gordon wasn't really, going to give you a whole lot of in-depth answers, I think. But Alec Pierce, first and foremost, absolute monster, has over 1,000 receiving yards with under 50 catches, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that hasn't been done since Deshaun Jackson did it. And you're talking about, he's not a Hall of Famer, right? Deshaun Jackson, definitely not a Hall of Famer. But are we talking about one of the most explosive players in NFL history? You're damn right. I mean, absolutely. And so for Alec Pierce to be put in the same conversation as a prime Deshaun Jackson, that's incredible. Congratulations to Alec Pierce, because he's going to be taking home at some point soon a bag full of money. I'm talking $20 million a year, $21 million a year. I mean, Alec Pierce, the Colts need to either franchise tag this guy, figure out a deal long-term, or they need to just give him a deal. They should have extended him, but in typical Chris Ballard fashion, they didn't do that. So now he's going to be, $5 to $6 million, more expensive every single season. So Alec Pierce played great. Probably would have had a third touchdown catch if a complete, baffling call from an official didn't, disqualify him from the game. Apparently, touching an official with your shoulder after the official bumps into you is good enough to get you kicked out of a game. So, but then the last thing I want to touch on with this game is just the defensive pass rush is a joke. I mean, it was such an underwhelming piece of this defense all season long. It was without question the weak point. DeForest Buckner obviously wasn't in this game, but there was 2 quarterback hits on CJ Stroud. 2. One of them was from Kenny Moore. I mean, you barely get any pressure on Stroud. You don't sack him at all. You don't sack Davis Mills at all. There was just nothing from the defensive pass rush, just further emphasizing that they got to do something. I fully expect, ladies and gentlemen, names like Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis, Samson Ebukam, not to return. I don't think that you can possibly bring any one of those guys back. The only 2 guys on contract are your top edge rusher, Leatu Latu, who did play great this year, but still could do better, and JT Tuimoloau. So that's really all I have to say about this game. Blake Grupe, another great performance. He was perfect for the Colts this season, and he's definitely going to get a starting gig, or at least a chance to start somewhere else in 2026. But let's go ahead and get to the chat here. We've got a lot of people joining in. We got Dylan Verano says, "Carlie, I'm pissed Irsay-Gordon." We'll dive into that a little bit. Like I said, guys, just because I'm doing the show alone, I'm not going to bounce back and forth between clips. I'm not going to pull up and collapse the YouTube thing. I feel like that's so annoying. It's hard enough to do with 2 people. So we're just going to give kind of a 3 subjects. I'm going to discuss 3 things that she touched on, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I think that Carlie Irsay-Gordon, I mean, I'll get into it, but not really that great of a press conference. I don't think that you can necessarily put a lot of expectations into a press conference. But yeah, she didn't really give you anything. At least I don't think so. Very ambiguous. When I walked away from that, I was asking more questions than actually, taking home answers. So Patrick Rice says, with how well Riley played against Houston, you have to wonder if he didn't have that PCL issue before Seattle. Dude has a lot of potential. And I see what you did there. Patrick. Riley Leonard absolutely balled out. I couldn't believe it. Actually, I was shocked, if I may be honest. I did a prediction piece on what I thought his stat line would be, and I predicted 4 turnovers. I predicted 3 picks and a fumble lost. I got the fumble lost. And I also predicted he would throw 1 touchdown and run 1 in. So I got the rushing touchdown right. But as far as his accuracy, he was far better than I expected. He hit Alec Pierce a couple times and really just looked like he was in control of the offense. I mean, I was wildly impressed, and good for Riley Leonard, because like I said, he is going to be the Colts' backup quarterback. I mean, I don't think that you can go any other way. And it also puts an even bigger wrench into what they're going to do with Anthony Richardson, which I'll get to that later. So thank you so much, Patrick. You're an absolute legend. Lindsey Mack here, the one and only. Can't catch you live much. Just wanted to say thank you for your work this season, despite the 8-9 outcome. Held it together on your own. Lindsey, you're a stud, man. I appreciate you throwing down a super chat and putting a nice comment like that. I do my best. Once the offseason or once this episode's over, we're going to evaluate a potential co-host. I've got a guy in mind. He works for the channel. I said that he was going to be on today, but I figured I'd go ahead and finish out the normal, the normal routine of these games and just the post-game breakdown, that kind of thing on my own. But I appreciate it. But we're going to have some changes to the podcast, positive changes, and I cannot wait for this 2026 offseason, because it's going to be dramatic as always. This team might not make the playoffs, but they do make plenty of dramatic subjects to talk about. So thank you so much, Lindsey, as always. Let me see here. Okay, so we got Aaron Jones 1469 saying, in my opinion, I think Chris Ballard should have been fired and Shane should have stayed coach. They started the season out great, and then it's like somebody flipped the switch, then went on losing. Like I said, I'll touch on that a little bit more with the subject of Carlie Irsay-Gordon's press conference. But Andrew Moore and I did a Bleacher Report episode where he basically said Ballard should have been fired after the 2022 season. I mean, the fact that he wasn't, I'm not going to lie, is pretty shocking. I can't believe that he's coming back again. I know that injuries happen and that's outside of his control, but dear Lord, you're going into year 10 with the general manager, which is astonishing because the guy has won one playoff game. He's taken his team to the playoffs twice. And one of those trips and that victory were Andrew Luck, for God's sakes. And we're talking about, it seems like an eternity ago that guy played football. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ballard this season and if they can do better. But, man, past indications say no. But, appreciate your comment there. It's just so big. Bring the juice here, says Tui Moloau. I basically got the name wrong, but yeah, JT Tuimoloau was one of two defensive ends that are still on contract in 2026. And like I said, before everybody piled in here, don't expect Pay or Lewis or Ebicom back. They all need to go. You've got to retool the freaking edge rush. What an abysmal performance. You don't get hardly any pressure on Stroud or Mills. You get no sacks. You get 2 quarterback hits, one of which is your freaking veteran slot corner. I mean, it's just a disgusting performance, and it just puts a bow on the fact that they got to do something about that pass rush, or else they're just going to keep getting carved up. In today's NFL, the way that teams pass the football, hell, the way teams run the football, you can't get much done if you don't have some kind of resemblance of a competent defensive front. And the Colts didn't have that, a.k.a. Charlie Partridge going to Notre Dame, and I think that's for the best. I think that their previous position coach, Nate Ollie, he was underwhelming, didn't get much done. Then you turn over here to Charlie Partridge, who for some reason somehow was worse than Nate Ollie. They got to find the right guy to help that defensive front and the right players. So thank you so much, Derek and Cody. Please, for the love of God, go watch Bring the Juice. They provide a lot of good content, and they help. Derek also had a great live stream with Carlie Irsay-Gordon today, so go check that out if you want to get some awesome reactions to what she was saying. It was all over Twitter. So but yeah, so now we've got a super chat here from Paul Wilson. I can't even get this show going, guys. You guys are providing way too much good content. This is going to be an 8-win team again. It's the same old Ballard. We like our guys, except they all will be a year older. Yeah, guys like DeForest Buckner, guys like Quentin Nelson, guys like Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Zaire Franklin, if you guys really want to hear his name, Kenny Moore, they're not getting younger. They're just aging, and it seems like those are perennial Pro Bowlers, all pro type talents. And they're just on a team that's crap. I don't want to say this team's crap. That's kind of mean. But if you're talking about, I mean, it'd be one thing if they're finishing at the bottom of the barrel every single season and they're getting high draft picks, or if they're competing for a playoff or for the Super Bowl, or at least making the playoffs, and you get the higher, draft pick or the later draft picks, I guess that's one thing. But this team is middling every single season. Now you've traded away both of your first rounders, right? So you don't get to sit here and say, well, at least we've got the 14th or 15th or 16th overall pick. None of that's coming. None of that's coming in this draft. None of it's coming in the next draft. And don't expect the Colts to trade up to get anything in there because they've already given up so much capital to get Sauce Gardner. So we'll see. But it's a very good assessment, Paul. I think that as long as Ballard is in the seat and as long as they just keep having collapses and can't win the games when they need to, you're going to see this team continue to finish with 8 and 9 wins. Shane Steichen is 25-26 in his NFL tenure as a head coach, and it's all been with the Colts. So yay to Colts fans, another sub 500 season. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So Colts CEO Carlie Irsay-Gordon, she addresses the media, okay? And without going into individual quotes, because there was nothing really to take away from this press conference, I'm sorry. I know that she's in front of the media really for the first time in this capacity in her tenure as the CEO, right? But she didn't give anything that any Colts fan should take away from this and go, you know what? I feel better. I feel better. If there's the three things we're going to talk about with this press conference: Ballard and Steichen, the 2025 season and her assessment of it, and Anthony Richardson. And Daniel Jones. Those are the three things that we're going to discuss here. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. The way that she talked about the 2025 season was, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. I'm pissed. I'm pissed. It was a lot of those two words over and over and over again. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Of course you're pissed, Carlie. You're the CEO of a football team that started 8-2, dropped their last 7 games of the season, and injuries plagued this squad. And I know that Carlie Irsay, before the season started, right, she said, we're going to evaluate accordingly if injuries decimate this team. And what a piece of foreshadowing, because that is exactly what happened. But for this team to lose 7 games in a row, I don't care what the schedule is. You lost 7 straight games and you got absolutely destroyed in primetime on a Monday night when Phillip Rivers actually showed up and looked like the Phillip Rivers of old. Okay. This was a press conference where I think Carlie was just trying to get through it. Not necessarily saying she had answers pre-written. I'm not saying that she didn't want to give the media something to work off of, but she didn't really answer anything, in my opinion. She gave what I like to call a Shane Steichen press conference, which is where you get a lot of this and you get nothing back. There's just nothing to take from it. But yeah, she reiterated this a lot. She said, with that said, Chris will continue as our general manager. Shane will continue as our head coach. We have been very clear with Chris and Shane that giving them another opportunity means the sense of urgency for them is to deliver and perform. It's never been higher. So she was asked, what's the difference for this season as opposed to last season? Well, it's going to be an even higher standard. And that's fair because you just finished with another losing record. And there's really nothing that you can take from this season. You sure as hell don't have draft picks. So she pretty much gave a flat answer in that regard. So the 2025 season, as opposed to now, the standard is going to be even higher. Well, what was the standard last year? Okay. Was it playoffs? Was it a Super Bowl? Was it to win the division? Nothing was really conclusively said. And so for her to say that the standards are going to be even higher, she was even asked, what does that mean? Playoffs? Does that mean Super Bowl? And she did emphasize that, a championship is what this team's going for. That's every team's goal. That should be every team's goal. I don't care if you're bottom of the barrel and you're rebuilding. You never know what could happen. You might be better than you expect. You might be worse than you expect. But it just seemed like there really wasn't any clear goal set from Carlie Irsay-Gordon on what she wants her team to accomplish in 2026. She said at the very start of it to our fans, you're right to be frustrated with how the latter part of our season went. I am pissed. We are all pissed. She also later was asked about just how she evaluates, Ballard and Steichen. And it's fair to say that things happen that are outside of their control. But I don't know. I don't know. When it comes to her talking about the season, it was leaning a lot into the injuries and how we did a great job. We showed that we have a very good team, and that we can perform at a high level, but ultimately it didn't end up that way. And I just didn't feel like there was enough substance coming from her quotes or her answers when it came to discussing the season. It just seemed like a lot of filler, and it seemed like a lot of things that are empty, empty calories like drinking beer. So, but we've got a lot in the chat here. Let me see, let me see here. Okay, Patrick Rye with a super chat here. Thank you so much, man. Carlie's Q&A and speech. Chat GPT, please give me a speech about a losing season combining all previous Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay postseason talks. I wouldn't necessarily go that far because Chris Ballard, while he's honest, or while he has some really eye rollers, that he's given you some eye rollers and some, oh my God, here we go again type press conferences, but he's dead honest. He's dead honest, and he gives you so much to take from. Andrew Moore on our website, he's an emeritus writer now, which means you're at a real far distance back and you're still covering things, but you're kind of picking and choosing your shots. Andrew Moore always breaks down Chris Ballard's press conferences, beginning of year, end of year, and everything in between. And one thing that Andrew Moore has always said is that Chris Ballard will give you so many nuggets, and he actually does what he says he's going to do. He really does. Does it always work? No. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. But she didn't even do that. Like, I don't want to go in. I got to choose my words carefully. I don't want to go all in a negative way on Carlie Irsay-Gordon because she was up there by herself. She's not used to this stuff. She's not in front of the media as much as her dad was. And she doesn't know how to work the questions and stuff like that. She wasn't good in this press conference. Okay. But she also could have been a little more definitive. She could have given more details. It was just a lot of repeating. I'm pissed. We're all pissed. There's going to be a higher standard, that's going to be set, which is crazy because the standard for 2025 was it should have been to make the playoffs. It should have been to win the division, So the fact that those were really the underlying standards, I can't remember if anything was ever said that those are what needs to happen. But, going into year 9, I think Chris Ballard's expectation should have been to make the playoffs. He didn't do that. Okay. Teams have injuries all the time. Look at the freaking 49ers. Great example. Christian McCaffrey has a great season coming back from injury. Okay. He's obviously on the field. No Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa. And that team is a potential Super Bowl contender. They beat the crap out of the Colts. Okay. They navigated injuries very well. The Jacksonville Jaguars, another great example. They navigated injuries and won the division. So that's happening in your own division. You've got 2 teams in the Texans and the Jaguars who are both going to the playoffs. One took the division from you, and they could both potentially make some noise. One is an offensive juggernaut. The other is a defensive juggernaut. And the Colts are over here, just eating dust that those 2 teams have left behind. So, I think that Ballard honestly gives more in his press conferences than Carlie Irsay-Gordon did. So I appreciate you, Patrick. Thank you so much, man. As always, you are a legend, the definitive official CFO of the Horseshoe Huddle. We got Bring the Juice here. Saying she never clarified what the standard is. Does Ballard and Steichen go 9-8 next year? And she says that's good. That's good enough to keep them around because they improved. Exactly. That's what I'm laying into here is that there's no standards. What is a high standard? She was even asked to clarify if that means playoffs, and she didn't. So I think that either Carlie Irsay-Gordon didn't want to give too much to the media. There's one of 3 things here. She didn't want to give too much to the media about the 2025 season, so she didn't. 2 is that she just was not ready for these kind of questions because, again, this is her first end-of-season press conference, and her team sucked it up in the second half of the year. It's very rare that you start 8-2 to finish 8-9. I dare say I've never seen a collapse like this. They were historically good, a Super Bowl contender, beating teams at an alarming rate, and they just fell apart in epic fashion. So for her to not give anything more than what she did, especially breaking down the season that just happened, it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. Again, I'm going to be soft on her because this is new to her to address the media like this. It's new. Okay. It's not easy. I'm a part of the media. Okay. I question players and I question the coaches and the staff every single summer. You know, I go down. In fact, Derek and Cody for Bring the Juice, they're down there as credentialed media members. They know how it goes. It's not easy to stand in front of 7 people, 8 people, in this case, 25 people maybe, that are sitting there recording you, have cameras all over, and they're trying to get you to answer questions and pull information out of you that you might not want to let go of. Okay, I get it. That's not easy. But you're the owner of the football team. You're the face of the franchise. You're trying to continue the legacy that your dad led on, and you're not answering anything, conclusively, with any detail. It just seemed like a lot of filler answers. And I just think that, I don't think that you can really take much away from this press conference. But the next thing I really, really want to talk about is, let me see here. Yeah. So Chris Ballard and Steichen, she really leaned heavily into the injuries being the big issue. And as I kind of touched on, good teams, Jonathan Taylor mentioned it. Good teams don't have losing streaks the way that the Colts did. They just don't. They don't. Am I saying that if you lose your starting quarterback the way the Colts did, that's the big one, okay? They lost Daniel Jones, okay? And then you bring in the corpse of Phillip Rivers, and then you bring in Riley Leonard, who's a rookie 6th rounder. You're not going to expect much. But I think that the fact that you couldn't do more than lose 7 straight games, that's just not okay. That's not good. That's not going to accomplish a damn thing in the NFL. That's not going to give your fans any sort of confidence. Or dare I say it, maybe some of the players. And the players love Carlie. They do. She's an awesome personality, and she really cares about her football team. But Shane Steichen should have been retained. Okay? Chris Ballard should have been canned, because you should have let your next GM come in and just make the decision his or herself. You should not have allowed Chris Ballard to come back to this team. Okay. A 10th season, when your last 3 have been 9-8, 8-9, and 8-9, you're going to give this guy a 10th season when he has no first-round picks. I get it. The next GM would be like, well, crap, I don't have 2 first-rounders. You don't have your first rounder till 2027. That's beside the point. You could still have a different mind on free agency. You still have picks in this draft. Okay, you still have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders. You can trade back, collect more picks. You can still get some work done in free agency and the draft. And I'm sorry, I'm sick of Ballard's draft philosophy. I'm sick and tired of his free agent philosophy. I'm sure as hell tired of his philosophy on the pass rush. The guy has too many red flags at this point. You should have allowed a new GM to come in and evaluate Steichen themselves and decide if they want to keep him or if they want to let him go. He's a damn good coach. He's a damn good offensive mind. I would assume that the next GM would have wanted to retain him, right? But it was baffling to me that she so quickly was like, Chris Ballard's back. I have been the guy that has tried to have all the confidence in Ballard. I have made arguments that there's not a lot of GMs. There's no GM, in my opinion, or in my knowledge of football, that's ever had a franchise quarterback leave the team weeks before your season starts after making the playoffs and winning a game. I've never seen that happen. But man, 20 or 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. We are in year 7 of this, and you still can't figure it out. And the last dude who led you to the playoffs is 44 years old now and retired the season after. So I'm the guy that I don't think Chris Ballard should have been retained. Maybe I'm crazy for saying that, but I also don't know if there's a single person that thinks that either. The next thing I'll say is I do think that I forgot to put up this graphic. I do think that Shane Steichen deserved to stay. the way that he operates, the way that he runs offenses, and how much of a quarterback guy he is, to lose Daniel Jones was a killer. I don't think they would have made the playoffs regardless if they would, even if they would have played better. And if Daniel Jones would have stayed healthy, he was still hobbled. He was still playing on a bad leg. Okay. Like it is what it is. He was playing on a bad leg. But I do think Shane Steichen deserved to stay. I think that he showed enough. But just the Chris Ballard one, that's beyond me. I don't get it. It's maybe she knows more than I do, but I'm telling you right now, 10 years for a general manager is a long freaking time. Guy like Howie Roseman, I get it. You're making the playoffs all the time. You've won a Super Bowl. You've gone to a Super Bowl. You have a hard-hitting defense. He's able to work free agents, work the draft. He just seems to get it all right. That's the guy that you need for 10 years, not freaking Chris Ballard. But this has got to be his last season. Boy, if you're Chris Ballard, those expectations we talked about that she didn't really answer questions on, you best make the playoffs. And dare I say it, that's not good enough. You need to go win a playoff game, and you need to win your division. In my opinion, if I was the CEO, those are the standards I'm putting on this football team. You better win your division, make the playoffs, get a playoff win, and if anything less than that, you're out. This regime, the coach, the GM, get out of here, because this team has just failed to do that too often. And after another 8-9 finish, it's just pathetic. It's unacceptable. Matthew Sundberg, 5424. We have got a chat. I'm doing dry January, bud. So no alcohol on the show for January. I'm trying to be an adult, and who wants empty calories? You know what I mean? I do wish I had my mule here though, because I'm talking about Chris Ballard. But we'll get it back. Just hold tight. We'll get it back. Time to drink up, sir. Colts offseason is here, so it's time to look at first round draft picks. Oh wait, so yeah, I think that when they made that trade, I was all for it. I mean, the Colts didn't go into this season with Daniel Jones thinking we can make a Super Bowl. They didn't. There's no way that was a realistic expectation. And when you get to the point where you're 7-1, 8-2, man, out of nowhere, you're like, holy crap, we have a potential Super Bowl contender here. It happened out of nowhere. So I was all about it. Like, hell yeah, why not have Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner on the field at the same time? Two absolute lockdown corners. You've got a Pro Bowl talent on one side. You've got an all-pro talent on the other. You've got a top 10 corner on one side and arguably the best cornerback on the other. Absolutely. That was a good trade. But the way that it panned out, where Gardner couldn't even get on the field hardly at all. And in unison, Charvarius Ward kept having concussions, and now the guy's contemplating retirement, and he should. I personally think he needs to go. If I'm Charvarius Ward, I'm not coming back to football after 3 concussions in one season. That's outrageous. If I'm him, I'm getting out of there. His dad even said that he wanted him to leave football, and he's going to think it over. I would love to see Charvarius Ward play in a Colts uniform, guys. I would love to see him play more than just 7 games, and I would also love to see him with Sauce Gardner. But if I see him get another concussion, that's going to break my heart, man. Like I just think that I think he needs to leave football and live his life. Do something else. He's got family, he's got friends, and he's got way more than football to live for, man. He's under 30 years old. So, thank you so much, Matthew. That's an awesome super chat right there. Patrick Rye, again, proving why he is the CFO of the Horseshoe Huddle. The most irritating thing about the press conference was her focus on the first half of the season without acknowledging that it was statistically one of the easier first half schedules in the league. Patrick, she was never going to talk about how easy the schedule was. I mean, there's no way that she was going to do that in her first press conference. It would have been nice. Chris Ballard would have acknowledged that. That's one thing that you do get from Chris Ballard. There's no punches pulled with Chris Ballard in a press conference. He might be mediocre as hell as a GM. He might whiff in free agency most of the time. Outside of this season, he went all in, give him credit. And he might, give you the we like our guys and this and that and that and this and all the eye rollers of answers. But he at least gives you plenty to work with in the media. Okay. She was never going to tell you that. But absolutely, yes, I think that I made plenty of arguments because you need to in this business when you're covering a team on a podcast. But for discussion purposes, the Chargers, okay, all right, but they also showed a propensity to get their asses kicked this year. That's pretty much the highlight victory from those first 10 wins. You lose to the Rams, and yes, there's an argument they should have won, but you didn't. They got destroyed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat teams like the Titans. They beat teams, like the Raiders, who just canned Pete Carroll after a season. You're talking about the Cardinals, who just canned Jonathan Gannon after a season. This is a team that was, yes, destroying opponents, and we've made the arguments on this show. You don't ask for your competition, okay? You play who's in front of you, and great teams destroy bad teams, and that's exactly what the Colts were doing. That is exactly what they did. But man, the Denver Broncos one, while it was a very nuanced strategy from Dalton Tucker to get that leverage call, you still probably shouldn't have won that game. I mean, by all regards, if that call doesn't happen, you're not talking about the Colts beating the Denver Broncos, who, by the way, are the number 1 seed in the AFC. So, but no, you're not lying, Patrick. They had an absolutely – it wasn't just cake. We're talking like cotton candy levels of soft schedule. So losing Daniel Jones at the time they did, or getting him having that fracture in his fibula at the time they did, when that bye week ends, and then you go into it with all these juggernaut teams, it was the worst possible outcome. And of course, you also have to factor in that the Atlanta Falcons, who fell apart also, they almost beat Indianapolis. It took a Herculean effort from Jonathan Taylor to beat the Falcons in Berlin. So I agree with you, Patrick. At this point, I'm ready to just, go ahead and say it. Their schedule was cake. It was cake in those first 10 games by all regards. So, wow. So good Lord. So many comments. I don't even know if I want to keep doing the show in the subject lines, but we have to. Okay. Before I continue here with the structure, bring the juice. Colts are 7-22 in their last 29 games against teams with a losing record. 2-10 against the Texans and Jags under Steichen. Woo. Cody, Derek, whichever there. Okay. Yeah. There we go. So accidentally put losing. 7-22 in their last 29 games against teams with a winning record. Guess what other team and coach has a very similar stat that Derek and Cody for Bring the Juice just put there? Mike McDaniel from the freaking Miami Dolphins. When he faces teams that have winning records or that put them in a warm or in a cold environment, they suck. They can't beat anybody. When it comes to teams that are 500 or below, oh yeah, man, guys, Tua diced them up for the most part. But when you put the real competition out there in front of Mike McDaniel, his teams wane like an old flower. Like it's astonishing. And thank you for putting that there, guys, because that's a disgusting stat. 7-22, and then 2-10 in your division against the 2 better teams. So that means that, and I guess they have beaten the Texans, but that was when CJ Stroud was in his second game. That's when Anthony Richardson got his concussion and ran in 2 rushing touchdowns. I remember that game at NRG Stadium. So, wow, that's a really sad statistic, and I appreciate you guys putting that up there because it really helps out the episode here. I thought I'd be done with this thing in like 35, 40 minutes. It looks like we got the whole hour we're going with, ladies and gents. Paul Wilson here with another super chat. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm getting super chats. I'm feeling the love. Colts defense is booty cheeks. It's been a total disaster for 5 years. I will go ahead and say that, Lou Anarumo, I'll defend him a little bit. I thought that he had good game plans. I really did. It's just, this is where the injuries can really, really pile up. Jonathan Edwards, Cameron Mitchell. Those are like those 2 names. If you're not covering the Colts or a fan of this team, you don't know who the hell those guys are. In fact, in some cases, Colts fans probably don't even know who those guys are anyway. And they're out there starting for you, right? And you're facing, great receivers. You're facing, obviously they didn't have Nico Collins, which is a little bit sad that they still lost the game and gave up 38 points. But yeah, I mean, the injuries just really piled up, I think. But there were times where Lou Anarumo did not coach effectively. And a lot of times it did come at the later stages of games. It really did, Paul. But that's something that has to be addressed. And I think you're going to have a new coordinator. I don't think Lou Anarumo's coming back. I think that he's probably going to take a head coaching job. And I'll actually get to that later. Right here. This is a good one. I know that I made the argument. So it's the same with cornerback injuries for Lou Anarumo that it was quarterback for Shane Steichen. Lou Anarumo is very heavy on coverage. He really coaches the heck out of cornerbacks and safeties. You never saw any issues with safety. That's because you weren't playing guys like Daniel Scott and Rodney Thomas. Okay. He at one point had Sauce Gardner, Charvarius Ward. He had serious talent out there. Jalen Jones didn't play he didn't play a good part of the season. You had Justin Wally, who was looking great, and Lou Anarumo was pumped about that guy. You also had Mike Hilton. His defense is predicated on cornerbacks and safeties, and cornerbacks just got destroyed this season. And then you got your top two guys who can't play. I mean, Lou was working with a skeleton crew. It's like Christmas where, you've got almost nobody in, everybody's on vacation, and you're just like, okay, this is going to be a simple day. And then here comes 100 people into your store. You're supposed to have 10 and you have 2. That just kind of felt like how it was for Lou. The cornerbacks, that's the biggest part of his defense. And for the love of God, he didn't have the guys he was supposed to. So I'm not necessarily surprised that the defense looked bad, but that pass rush, it's more on Charlie Partridge, who's going back to the NCAA where he belongs, and he's going to do great. That's his thing. It's just like Chip Kelly, garbage in the NFL, but far less likable than Charlie Partridge. So, but thank you so much, Patrick, for that comment. That actually does put a lot of good content out there. But the last thing I'm going to mention here is her comments on Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. So, she said, so I think Daniel came in here knowing he had something to prove. I think he did a great job. He's a great teammate. I think he gave a lot of the players on our team hope. Alec Pierce actually said that, that's going to be a big thing for him coming back is if they keep Daniel Jones, which that says a lot about this locker room and what they think about Daniel Jones. I think that Carlie Irsay didn't necessarily give wild compliments to Jones. Like, she gave your typical coach speak compliments like he's a competitor. He fights. He wants to win, just your ho-hum, type of answers that all the media guys, when they go, I know when I ask a coach a question and that's a good question and I get an answer like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Hey, did the best he could, tried his best, competitor, wants to win. It drives me nuts. It's like, give us something else. That's why I don't like to interview Shane Steichen at all. Or Jim Bob Cooter, who gives you 7 paragraphs, no weight, nothing to really pull from it. But I think you're going to see Daniel Jones re-signed. Now I want to get to Anthony Richardson. Okay. I put out a post on X that has almost 500 likes, and I posted this thing 4.5 hours ago. Okay. That tells you how much people are tuned in to this press conference. She said on Anthony Richardson, and I quote, listen to how insane this is. I think I'm going to stay in my lane on that one. Shane and Chris are going to do the right thing. What in the hell does that even mean, Carlie? What does that even mean? Stay in your lane? You are the lane. You're the entire road. In fact, Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard are the 2 lanes. She is the entire road. What do you mean stay in your lane? I couldn't believe that answer. He's gone. Anthony Richardson's not coming back. No way. No way is he coming back. They keep talking about how They like Daniel Jones. They like what they gave him or what he gave him. Injury, if it didn't happen, he would have done this. He did great. There was no positive anything said about Anthony Richardson. The most positive thing she said was, I'm sad for him. I feel terrible for what happened. But to say that Shane and Chris are going to do the right thing, what does that mean? Does the right thing mean you're going to give him a chance to start and trust him? Does the right thing mean you're going to sign Daniel Jones and keep him as a backup on the roster and decline his fifth-year option? Does doing the right thing mean that you're going to grant the man a trade when Derek Jackson, his agent, requests one? There's so much to unpack from those two simple sentences. I think I'm going to stay in my lane on that one, and Shane and Chris are going to do the right thing. If anybody wanted context and clarity on Anthony Richardson's future, sorry, you're just going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait, I guess. And given, like Patrick said, given how well Riley Leonard played, he's your QB2. He's your QB2. Daniel Jones is your QB1. You could sign a QB3 off the freaking practice squad, bud. You could put me in at QB3, or dare I say, if they liked Seth Hennigan enough, you get him as your QB3. He could be your Sam Ehlinger. Anthony Richardson's done, ladies and gentlemen. I thought that he should get a chance to start in 2026. I really did. I know that he's got the injuries and he looked terrible in 2024. But man, you invested all this into this kid and you preached patience, and they're giving up on him. They've already given up on him. And they gave up on him. I know he got hurt, but it just seems like they quit on the kid. It seems like he quit on the Colts. It just seems like a marriage made in hell. But yeah, if anybody wants, clarity on what's to come for Anthony Richardson, from my professional opinion, he's gone. He's not coming back. You've seen him in a Colts uniform for the last time. Pretty soon the media won't be able to interview him because I do think his representation is going to request a trade. I'd be like, this is ridiculous. This dude is sitting on the sideline. He's like 23. He's got all these traits. If the Colts are good to Anthony Richardson, they will let him trade and get out of there and let a guy like maybe Kevin O'Connell or a mind like Sean McVay mold him into something better, because the Colts clearly couldn't do it. Or maybe he just sucks. Maybe he's an utter bust. That's also a very real possibility. We got a bunch of comments here. We just played Rivers and almost edited played Warren. Yeah, I mean, no, what I'm saying, Darth, is that Richardson, he can't even be a QB3. The Colts are done with him. Even if he was to show glimpses of improvement somehow during the offseason, right? And he returns from that orbital injury and he's better than ever. I just don't think you can trust him. I don't think the Colts trust him. I don't think he trusts the Colts anymore. I definitely don't think his agent trusts Indianapolis. And I don't think Derek Jackson, his agent, and Chris Ballard like each other very much. I think that that's not going to come out until years later. But I bet you that they are not fans of one another. I think Derek Jackson looks at this franchise and says, you screwed Anthony Richardson. I think that, Ballard's looking at him like, we did everything we could. I think Cam Turner's an incredibly underwhelming quarterback coach. I'll tell you that. I don't think that he's that great, but I just think it was a match made in hell. Initially it looked like a match made in heaven. You got Steichen, who coached Jalen Hurts. Here's an athletic freak. It just didn't turn out that way, man. But yeah, I hate to say this, and I hate to say this. I really do. But Riley Leonard showed that he's more ready for the NFL than Anthony Richardson. And maybe, like I said, maybe he goes somewhere else and he just turns into that dude that the Colts couldn't do. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Tony, Seth Hennigan, he got picked up by the Jaguars. He got released by the Jaguars. 3 months later, on December 29th, the Colts picked him up. But all you need to know about Seth Hennigan is go look. I know that Memphis's competition isn't wild. The Memphis Tigers. He was an absolute monster in college, absolute stud. He was decimating defenses in college. So I think there's something you could mold there. I really do. But there's not much on Seth Hennigan, honestly. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, this press conference, man, it didn't give the fans anything. It didn't give the fans anything, man. I mean, it didn't give the media anything. It doesn't comfort anyone. It shouldn't comfort anybody. It should make you go, what? Like, what's next? What should I take from this? Other than, here's to potentially another mediocre season. Here's to not really knowing what the expectations are. The expectations are higher than they were. Okay. I thought they were pretty high last season. They weren't definitive, but I'm pretty sure in the air it was make the playoffs because you haven't done that since 2020, win the division because you haven't done that since 2014, and win a playoff game, which you haven't done since 2018's season. But the expectations are higher, AKA the same. The expectations are the same. It's to do those things again, only this time you're canned if you don't do those. So, like I said, they can't just make the playoffs. In my opinion, they got to win a game, because just making the playoffs and getting one and done, dare I say they make the playoffs without winning the division and then they're one and done, you absolutely got to tear this thing down. So, but yeah, that's the playoffs or bust for years. Playoffs or bust for years. And just before I get to the news and rumors here, Ricky Johnson says, I think we have our 3 QBs. Jones, Leonard, and Hennigan, no room for AR. Like I said, I think Darth Rader actually touched on it a little bit. You're not going to take your 4th overall selection and put him as your QB3. You can get something out of him. The saddest part of all this is, I'll just boldly say it. When the Colts trade Anthony Richardson, they're not going to get a damn thing for him. Nothing. Teams are going to get a gold mine of a trade here. Think about it. What do you have to give up for AR? A dude he started 15 out of 34 games. He didn't play all the last year because of an orbital injury. All these injuries, right? He's injury riddled like a bullet sponge. Okay. Then you're talking about absolutely god-awful football. Just not good at all. Terrible football. Okay. And you're talking about a kid who looks like a bust. What, 5th, 6th, 7th rounder? That's what you're going to get for your 4th overall selection. And the team that trades for him gives that away, and it's a golden trade, because you're giving away almost nothing for a guy that could potentially, Patrick's favorite word, could actually be moldable. It just didn't happen with the Colts. And if he goes somewhere else and skyrockets to stardom, the Colts got like a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick for him. They're going to get nothing. They're going to get fleeced in a trade for him if he goes out there and even looks like a competent top 20 quarterback. If he looks like a top 24 quarterback, or even, dare I say, if he looks like anything better than a backup, the Colts grossly failed him, and they got nothing in return. So we'll see. But Anthony Richardson's definitely going to get traded. I cannot imagine that he's going to stay. Apparently this season, thank you so much, Patrick. Yet again, another super chat from the top rope elbow drop. Apparently this season had no sense of urgency because that's Ballard's assignment now for 2026. Also, her quote was, injuries aren't an excuse, but the excuse for bringing back Ballard was injuries. So Patrick is basically putting Carlie Irsay's quotes on a skillet here and frying them to death. And they should be. She's the owner of the football team. She's the face of the franchise. This is one of the biggest collapses I've ever seen, possibly ever will see. And it just seemed like she was spinning her tires a lot. You know what I mean? There wasn't really any traction. There wasn't really any forward movement. It was just a really underwhelming press conference. And Patrick, I don't even know what the hell the standards really are for this season. But I can't imagine it's not win the division, get to the playoffs, and win a playoff game. Those 3 boxes have to be checked off. Or if you don't win the division, you better get to the playoffs and you better win a playoff game. If those are not met, at least those 2, you're done. You got to tear it down. And who knows what's going to happen with some of these veterans. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to keep them all, maybe restructure a few things, but Dear Lord, man, what a mess. What an absolute mess. Let's see. Yeah, one more here. Jordan Pence 78-64. State of the NFL quarterback is rough right now. Someone will take a shot. That's true. I mean, you're thinking about the Colts needed a quarterback and they went and got Phillip Rivers. The quarterback position in the NFL is an issue. The entire NFL has a quarterback development issue. Just a bad problem with developing QBs. So we'll see. All right, guys. So we actually have to get to some news and rumors. So Lou Anarumo is interviewing for the head coach position for the Titans. Wow. Boy, oh boy. That would be awful if he took that coaching position, because then you got to deal with a guy who knows your offense twice next year. That would be, and he looked good at times. Lou Anarumo was cooking sometimes, man. I mean, he dropped back Latu in coverage, and the dude came up with 3 interceptions. I mean, it takes a defensive madman to take his defensive end and drop him back in coverage, send 2 linebackers in a corner, and you take your defensive tackle and defensive end and drop him back in coverage. It takes an absolute psychopath to do that and feel like it's going to work. Even more of a psychopath for it to work and have it be effective, where Latu has a trio of interceptions in one season. I would hate for him to go to the Titans because, like I said, man, he knows the Colts offense like the back of his hand. Okay, so that'd be a chess match. That'd be a warlike chess match between him and Steichen. But good for Lou Anarumo. He's been campaigning for a head coaching job for a while, and I think he's going to get it. If I'm the Titans, I'm hiring Lou. He's got a far better vibe about him than I think Brian Callahan, dude, who was just a complete jerk, and was one of the most, if not the most unlikable coach in the NFL when he still had a job. So, but we'll see, man. So Colts news and rumors here, and I see we got a whole bunch of comments here, but we're going to try to wrap it up here. So the Colts had a slew of roster moves today. They signed guys to future contracts. The biggest one though is they extended. They extended Austin Ajaki, who did some good at linebacker. He showed that they've got some depth, which honestly, the fact that Austin Ajaki's getting an extension and Jalen Carlie was healthy and was put as a scratch on the inactives multiple times this season, ended up getting one crummy tackle. That tells me that Jalen Carlie is a bust. He's not, he's a 5th rounder, but he's not a competent linebacker. I think the Colts looked at him and they're like, you can't play. You can't play. He was out all season with an ankle injury, comes off of injured reserve. He's there for one game, makes one tackle, boom, right back on as a healthy scratch on the inactives. Wildly discouraging, dude. Absolutely terrible. And then two of the biggest quotes, and I'll kind of wrap it up after this, but I kind of touched on him earlier. Alec Pierce mentioned that, it's Daniel Jones staying is a big factor in him staying. That's huge because that just shows the presence that Daniel Jones has in that locker room. A lot of players love him. No one's talking about Anthony Richardson. No one's talking about him, man. So I think the days of Anthony Richardson being here are over. And then, of course, Charvarius Ward, like I mentioned, he's contemplating retirement. He absolutely should. 3 concussions is no joke. That's honestly terrifying that he's even thinking about coming back. But at the end of the day, it's up to Mooney. It's his life. I just hope that if he returns that he stays healthy. But that's the show, guys. I hope that everyone has at least some I don't know, man. I think that I don't want to say that I hope everyone has some kind of silver lining in their heart after this, because there was nothing to take away from this press conference other than what? Just a big question mark, just a big what? Or like McAfee says, what? That's the kind of what. Not even a pure what, more like what? That's the kind of question that comes away from this press conference, guys. It was just, I didn't like it. I'm not going to lie. I was not a big fan. Thank you so much, man. You are a legend. You both are legends over there on Bring the Juice. Again, Derek, Larger, and Cody Felger, absolute legends. Oh, guys, I'm doing this every Monday. Every Monday. It might be a little bit of a slog with the off season coming up, but there's signings that are going to be happening. There's going to be releases. There's going to be potential firings, stuff like that. There's going to be plenty to talk about next Monday. This first week after the regular season ends is always busy. Like today was pretty busy. So, but guys, thank you so much. I want to give a real quick shout out to Lindsey Mack, Paul Wilson, Patrick Rye, Matthew Sundberg. You guys are absolutely amazing. I'm making sure that I didn't miss any of these. Let me see. Well, look at that. Patrick Rye ends with a super chat that I almost forgot. Silver lining is we don't have to see the Colts get beat by 30 in the playoffs by barely making it. I'm of the mind that if you make the playoffs and you get the crap beat out of you and you're done, you almost didn't even make the playoffs. You really didn't make the playoffs if that's the result from your regular season, is that you get in and you get your butt kicked, right? Especially if you're on the road and you're just barely clinging on. But yeah, so guys, thank you so much. Oh, this was such a fun episode. I can't wait to do more. Like I said, we're going to be reevaluating the staff on this podcast. I might keep doing it solo. I might bring on a host. I've got a guy in mind. But if you guys like when I do this solo, hell, I'll keep doing it solo. I want to do what the fans want for this podcast. But anyway, guys, like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow Indianapolis Colts on SI. And as always on X, we are at Colts_SI. Subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube. Click that bell to turn on all the notifications. And if you want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, I've got all of you hooked up. Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever the heck you ingest your podcasts for the Colts, I'm on there. We're on there. So, guys, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. You guys, Patrick, you are absolutely. Oh, and Paul throws in you guys are filthy. You guys are filthy in that comment section. Anyway, I love all you guys, but until then, take care. Have a wonderful week. Hopefully everyone isn't too sad. Don't get all doom and gloom and get in the fetal position and cry in the bathtub like I'm going to. All right. Don't do that. Nobody wants to do that. I'm going to do it, but I don't want you guys to have to do it. But until then, guys, take care. I'll be seeing you all on Monday. And as always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.